Back in the room, class. Attention! Get that brain ready. Give yourself a nice little brain massage. Get some raw salmon in you. None of that toxic shit though. Because now we're getting into real details about these fuckers that have ruined everything. Every single thing on this earth. These guys did it. You had a problem in your life. These guys manifested that problem in your life. You had a family member die. You had some of your friends die. These guys manifested that shit. Because nobody dies for natural freaking sources anymore. We all die by these guys' hands. Let's get that very clear first. Now, pens and papers ready. Take notes. Memorize this shit. This is important. Let's get into it. The
Just
money
who are
changers.
These money changers James Madison spoke of?
Yes.
In the Bible, 2,000 years ago, Jesus drove the money changers from the temple. It was the only time Jesus used force during his ministry.
Usually Jesus was all about love thy neighbor, turn the other cheek. But even Jesus threw hands with these fuckers. Even Jesus was like, enough is enough. I gotta freaking get your ass out of here because you're ruining everything. See, Jesus could see a freaking parasite. He knew how to get rid of parasites. Man, if that's not clear enough messaging for you, nothing is. And say what you will about the Jesus thing. Still, that's some strong imaginary.
What were money changers doing in the temple? When Jews
Ruining
came to Jerusalem to pay their temple tax, they could only pay it with a special coin, the half shekel of the sanctuary. This was a half ounce of pure silver about this size. It was the only coin around at that time which was pure silver and of assured weight without the image of a pagan emperor. Therefore to Jews, the half shekel was the only coin acceptable to God. But these coins were not plentiful. The money changers had cornered the market on them. Then they raised the price, just like any other commodity, to whatever the market would bear. In other words, money changers were making exorbitant profits because they held a virtual monopoly on money. The Jews had to pay whatever they demanded. To Jesus, this totally violated the sanctity of God's house. But the money-changing scam did not originate in Jesus' day. 200 years before Christ, Rome was having trouble with money changers. 2 early Roman emperors had tried to diminish the power of the money changers by reforming usury laws and limiting land ownership to 500 acres. They were both assassinated. In 48...
What have I been saying about these assassinations? When somebody tries to do some good in this world, like really good, it's always the good guys. At least it seems like that. These money changers, maybe some of them die and we just don't give a fuck. Because why would we? But they always rise to the top with their little schemes. And freaking... But yeah. If you're gonna go against these guys, we need a whole freaking big ass army to go against these guys. We need to get the whole population lifted out of their MK Ultra programming and dumping down of their freaking brain cells by all of these technologies and shitty foods and chemtrails. Like, we need to get everybody involved in this. Then they cannot assassinate everybody. if everybody knows who these guys are, and everybody knows their little dirty ass evil tricks. Everybody knows their schemes, and so the schemes don't work anymore. Rub your freaking hands together. 6 feet under, bitch.
BC, Julius Caesar took back the power to coin money from the money changers and minted coins for the benefit of all. With this new, plentiful supply of money, he built great public works projects. By making money plentiful, Caesar won the love of the common man. But the money changers hated him. Some believe this was an important factor in Caesar's assassination. One thing is for sure, with the death of Caesar came the demise of plentiful money in Rome. Taxes increased, as did corruption. Just as in the case of America today, usury and debased coin became the rule. Eventually, the Roman money supply was reduced by 90%. As a result, the common people lost their lands and their homes, just as is about to happen soon.
We never learn. We never learn this shit. And now it's way harder because their freaking mind control programs are way more advanced. Because they hired some base scientist who could understand nature and human physiology pretty good. They hired them. They figured a bunch of shit out how human mind works and human body works. So these guys understand that perfectly. So they know how to ruin that shit. They know how to ruin your physiology. They know how to ruin your brain health. No wonder everybody have these mental health problems. Because they're supposed to. It's by design. And we'll never learn.
In America. With the demise of plentiful money, the masses lost confidence in the Roman government and refused to support it. Rome plunged into the gloom of the Dark Ages. A 1,000 years after the death of Christ, money changers, those who loan out and manipulate the quantity of money, were active in medieval England. In fact, they were so active that acting together, they could manipulate the entire English economy. These were not bankers per se. The money changers generally were the goldsmiths. They were the first bankers because they started keeping other people's gold for safekeeping in their vaults. The first paper money was merely a receipt for gold left at the goldsmith. Paper money caught on because it was more convenient than carrying around a lot of heavy gold and silver coins. Eventually, goldsmiths noticed that only a small fraction of the depositors ever came in and demanded their gold at any one time. Goldsmiths started cheating on the system. They discovered that they could print more money than they had gold, and usually no one would be the wiser. Then they could loan out this extra money and collect interest on it. This was the birth of fractional reserve banking.
No! Why do these guys have to be so freaking smart? And everybody else so stupid? That's when everything went to shit. Actually, it happened earlier in history. But it always starts to pile up. The shit starts to pile up because we make mistake after mistake and we never learn from our mistakes.
Is loaning out many times more money than you have assets on deposit. So, if $1,000 in gold were deposited with them, they could loan out about $10,000 in paper money and draw interest payments on it, and no one would ever discover the deception. By this means,
well, you and I now learn about this shit. This is how they operate, and even more cunning and freaking stealthy these days.
Goldsmiths gradually accumulated more and more wealth and used this wealth to accumulate more and more gold. Today, this practice of loaning out more money than there are reserves is known as fractional reserve banking. Every bank in the United States is allowed to loan out at least 10 times more money than they actually have.
Makes sense. This system makes perfect sense.
That's why they get rich on charging, let's say, 8% interest. It's not really 8% per year, which is their income. It's 80%. That's why bank buildings are always the largest in town. But does that mean that all interest or all banking should be illegal? Hardly. In the Middle Ages, canon law, the law of the Catholic Church, forbade charging interest on loans. This concept followed the teachings of Aristotle and St. Thomas Aquinas. They taught that the purpose of money was to serve the members of society, to facilitate the exchange of goods needed to lead a virtuous life. Interest, in their belief, hindered the...
I think it's just better to leave all this shit alone, because it always gets centralized. Banking on all this shit. You have to own what you have. You have to have a loyal title. That's the way to go. Your family owns this, you hold it together. That family owns that, he holds it together. Or she. When it gets to these big groups and organizations, it gets centralized and then top of the pyramid. And that's how they corrupt everything and freaking hijack everything and take over everything. That's how they do it. We need to make everything decentralized. Just kinda little bit working together with each other. That's how we need to do it.
This purpose by putting an unnecessary burden on the use of money. In other words, interest was contrary to reason and justice. Reflecting church law in the Middle Ages, Europe forbade charging interest on loans and made it a crime called usury. As commerce grew, and therefore opportunities for investment arose in the late Middle Ages, it came to be recognized that to loan money had a cost for the lender, both in risk and in lost opportunity. So some charges were allowed, but not interest per se. But all moralists, no matter what religion, condemn fraud, oppression of the poor, and injustice as clearly immoral. As we will see, fractional reserve lending is rooted in a fraud, results in widespread poverty, and reduces the value of everyone else's money. The ancient goldsmiths discovered that extra profits could be made by rowing the economy between easy money and tight money. When they made money easier to borrow, then the amount of money in circulation expanded. Money was plentiful. People took out more loans to expand their businesses. But then the money changers would tighten the money supply. They would make loans more difficult to get. What would happen? Just what happens today. A certain percentage of people could not repay their previous loans and could not take out new loans to repay the old ones. Therefore, they went bankrupt and had to sell their assets to the goldsmiths for pennies on the dollar. The same thing is still going on today. Only today, we call this rowing of the economy up and down the business cycle. Like Julius Caesar, King Henry I of England finally resolved to take the money power away from the goldsmiths about 1100 AD. Henry could have used anything as money, seashells, feathers, or even yak dung, as is often done in remote Tibetan provinces. But he invented one of the most unusual money systems in history. It was called the tally stick system. Here I have one of the few surviving...
This is how the schemers be like when you start to coming up with the ideas like that. They got their freaking red eyes set on your ass.
examples of this form of British money, which lasted 726 years until 1826, a tally stick.
This goes to show There's fucking no money. These money freaking systems, they are so stupid. They never have made that much sense to me. And once you understand all that, and we can just have this stick instead of these freaking numbers in a screen or freaking papers or whatever, gold, whatever. Let's get rid of all of it. It's what ruins everything. It's what ruins freaking everything.
The tally system was adopted to avoid the monetary manipulation of the goldsmiths. Tally sticks were money fabricated out of sticks of polished wood. Notches were cut along one edge of the stick to indicate the denominations. Then the stick was split lengthwise through the notches so that both pieces still had a record of the notches. The king kept one half to protect against counterfeiting. Then he would spend the other half into the economy and they would circulate as money. This particular tally stick is huge. It represented 25,000 pounds. One of the original stockholders in the Bank of England purchased his original shares with this stick. In other words, he bought shares in the world's richest and most powerful corporation with a stick of wood. It's ironic that after its formation in 1694, the Bank of England attacked the tally stick system because it was money outside the power of the money changers, just as King Henry had wanted it to be. Why do people accept?
Man, it took them 726 years to do that shit? How, bro? Usually they get on to these kind of ideas quick. They have learned from those mistakes. Yeah.
Sticks of wood for money? That's a great question. Throughout history, people traded anything they thought had value and used as money. You see, the secret is that money is only what people agree on to use as money. What's our paper money today? It's really just paper. But here's the trick. King Henry ordered that tally sticks had to be used to pay the king's taxes. This built-in demand for tally sticks immediately made them circulate and be accepted as money. And they worked well. In fact, no other form of money has worked so well for so long as tally sticks. Keep in mind, the British Empire was built under the tally stick system. The tally stick system succeeded despite the fact that the money changers constantly attacked it by offering the metal coin system as competition. In other words, metal coins never went completely out of circulation, but tally sticks hung on because they were good for the payment of taxes. Finally, in the 1500s, King Henry VIII relaxed the laws concerning usury, and the money changers wasted no time.
I wonder why he did that. They always get those freaking people in power. They always corrupt them. Always. It might take them a generation or two, but in the end, it will always happen if we keep playing with systems like these. We need to get rid of, burn this shit to the ground. We need to burn this shit fully to the ground and piss on top of that.
Time reasserting themselves. They quickly made their gold and silver money plentiful for a few decades. But when Queen Mary took the throne and tightened the usury laws again, the money changers renewed the hoarding of gold and silver coins, forcing the economy to plummet. When Queen Mary's sister, Queen Elizabeth I, took the throne, she was determined to regain control over English money. Her solution was to issue gold and silver coins from the public treasury and take the control over the money supply away from the money changers. Although control over money was not the only cause of the English Revolution in 1642, religious differences fueled the conflict. Monetary policy played a major role. Financed by the money changers, Oliver Cromwell finally overthrew King Charles, purged the Parliament, and put the king to death. the money changers were immediately allowed to consolidate their financial power. The result was that for the next 50 years, the money changers plunged Great Britain into a series of costly wars. They took over a square mile of property in the center of London known as...
This is the real head of the snake. Federal Reserve. Yeah, that's pretty cool. This place. The city of London. If we wanna burn someplace down in this earth, this is the place. This is the head of the snake. Since these times, when they freaking were able to do all this scheming and manifest all this shit happen in this reality, since those times, they have run this shit. Now they maybe got a little bit competition with the technocrats. They kinda not seeing eye to eye. But the both of those sides still not good. They ain't part of the nature gang. They ain't about that nature at all. They're the most anti-nature Satanist out there. But yeah, city of London. Write that shit down right now.
the City of London. This area today is still known as one of the 3 predominant financial centers of the world. Conflicts with the Stuart kings led the money changers in England to combine with those in the Netherlands to finance the invasion of William of Orange, who overthrew the Stuarts in 1688 and took the English throne. By the end of the 1600s, England was in financial ruin. 50 years of more or less continuous wars with France and Holland had exhausted her. Frantic government officials met with the money changers to beg for the loans necessary to pursue their political purposes.
And you can start to see why these wars are happening. Who's behind them? Who's making these wars happen all the time? Like general people, the normies and the MPs, they don't wanna go to war. They just wanna live their lives in peace and watch Netflix and drink little coffee cups. Yes, drink coffee cups. But anyway, these guys are behind the wars. You probably figured that out already.
The price was high. A government-sanctioned, privately owned bank which could issue money created out of nothing. It was to be the modern world's first privately owned central bank, the Bank of England. Although it was deceptively called the Bank of England to make the general population think it was part of the government, it was not.
Deceptions? The most powerful organizations in the world are full of deceptions and lies and corruption. What? My school didn't teach me this.
Like any other private corporation, the Bank of England sold shares to get started. The investors, whose names were never revealed, were supposed to put up £1.25 million British pounds in gold coin.
I want to know those names right now. Never revealed. We don't even know yet who freaking manifested Bank of England. Who was these guys? The black nobility? The Venetian bankers? Who were these guys? I want to know.
Coin to buy their shares in the bank, but only £750,000 was ever received. Despite that, the bank was duly chartered in 1694 and started out in the business of loaning out several times the money it supposedly had in reserves, all at interest. In exchange, the new bank would loan British politicians as much of the new currency as they wanted, as long as they secured the debt by direct taxation of the British people. So, legalization of the Bank of England amounted to nothing less than legal counterfeiting of a national currency for private gain. Unfortunately, nearly every nation now has a privately controlled central bank using the Bank of England as the basic model. Such is the power of these central banks that they soon take total control over a nation's economy. It soon amounts to nothing but a plutocracy ruled by the rich. It would be like putting control of the army in the hands of the mafia. The danger of tyranny would be extreme. Yes, we need central banks. No, we do not need them in private hands. The central bank scam is really a hidden tax. The nation sells bonds to the central bank to pay for things it does not have the political will to raise taxes to pay for. But the bonds are purchased with money the central bank creates out of nothing. More money in circulation makes your money worth less. The government gets as much money as it
How the fuck these people who study economics in college, how the fuck they don't go completely in? Well, most of them do go completely insane. They have to. They either go completely insane or they go straight into this freaking corrupt ass system, bro.
Needs, and the people pay for it in inflation. The beauty of the plan is that not one person in 1,000 can figure it out because it's usually hidden behind complex sounding economics gibberish. With the formation of the Bank of England, the nation was soon awash in money. Prices throughout the country doubled. Massive loans were granted for just about any wild scheme. One venture proposed to drain the Red Sea to recover gold supposedly lost when the Egyptian army drowned pursuing Moses and the Israelites. By 1698, government debt grew from the initial £1.25 million to £16 million. Naturally, taxes were increased and then increased again to pay for all of this. With the British money supply firmly in their grip, the British economy began a wild roller coaster series of booms and depressions, exactly the sort of thing a central bank claims it is determined to prevent.
There are two things which I think are intrinsic not just to the...
You can start to see how these guys manipulate everything that's happening in our little civilization. And then guess who owns the freaking news and newspapers and all of this shit that goes into normal people's brains? Who owns that information?
Bank of England, but to central banking generally. The first is an involvement in the formulation of monetary policy with the specific objective of achieving monetary stability.
However, since the Bank of England took control, the British pound has rarely been stable. Now let's take a look at the role of the Rothschild family, the family said to be the wealthiest in the world.
Ooh, now we're gonna get some names, bro. I love learning about the Rothschilds because they are one of the most, you know what. Well, that's gonna be tomorrow. Class dismissed. Go outside into the nature, sit on the ground with your bare ass, get your teeth and ball sack into the sunlight. Eat some good natural food from your local environment, make love, and just freaking try to base bill everybody in your life. Get this knowledge to everybody you know. Probably most of them, they ain't gonna be too open about it from the get-go, but we keep trying. We keep planting those seeds because when everybody knows about the Rothschilds, when everybody knows about the Bank of the City of London or freaking City of England, whatever the fuck it is, when everybody knows that, then we can burn this shit to the ground where it belongs. So tomorrow, Rothschilds, get ready, because these guys are evil as fuck and manifested everything, bro.